Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I know you're double checking your calendars right now, trying to figure out, hey, it's Tuesday, it's not Thursday. What's Cliff doing on the podcast? But hey, I switched it up a little bit today. I just had that feeling that I needed to get on and talk. Plus, Chris, who produces a lot of our shows, he's going out for Face Man's retirement later in the week, so he won't be available on Thursday. So we thought, well, maybe we won't do a show, maybe we'll do a show. And I thought, hey, you know what? Let's just do a show. So Chris talked me into it. So here I am. But I hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. I hope they enjoyed, Memorial Day weekend. For those who listening on Reach Across America, I know it's a couple weeks later. But Memorial Day weekend is really a reflection for a lot of veterans. And it can be a rough day for a lot of them. And I did a special interview on with VTT. I was very thankful of them allowing me to come on the show and join them as something they do, to remember, their friends that they've lost, over the years. Um, so, hang on a second. Yes, yeah, maybe that's a little bit better. So I hope everybody's had a great weekend. I hope you enjoyed your Memorial Day. I hope you celebrated in a way that that you do, and that helped you deal with the loss or the thoughts of your friends and or family members that you might have lost during that time frame. But hey, this is the Mental Health Warrior. I am now available on Reads Across America Radio. And yeah, I'm super excited about that. You can catch a rebroadcast of this podcast at Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. And it's just super easy to find. You just download either the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, or the TuneIn app. Search for Reach Across America, and you just click follow. And then you can catch not only my programming, but all the other great programming they have on the show. I was lucky enough to be with them a couple weeks ago in D.C. They had an event going on out there, and it was truly amazing to see how fast they set up that radio station, traveling, and be able to go on live with them there, and that was a lot of fun. So I'm very appreciative of Reach Across America. You can also donate to Reach Across America. We share that link. That link only helps supports Veterans Trash Talk and my podcast, but more so, it really supports in making sure that those wreaths are put on those soldiers' graves during the holidays. And my region area is the Arlington Cemetery. So if you do donate, it's for Arlington Cemetery here in Washington D.C. So hope everybody had a great weekend. Like I said before, if you watched my mental health minute today, one thing I talked about in it was courage and compassion. And I really thought about that, this weekend, and that's what I really want to talk about because I think for a lot of people that that's kind of hard, right? To not hard as in fact as hard as something to do, but I think learning to be more compassionate to others and to situations can be difficult for some. I know for me it was hard, when I was younger to learn that until I went through what I went through with 9/11 and my PTSD and my suicide attempt. It really taught me to be more understanding to issues and problems that other people are having, and that we have in our lives each and every single day. And just to have that second of compassion, just knowing that somebody might just be having a bad day or something could have happened to them, or just being able to understand a little bit more about what's going on with them or something. I know that if you guys you work and you have your workmates, some of them may have been affected by Memorial Day, and so maybe today they're not the happy-go-lucky person they usually are at work. Maybe they're a little withdrawn. And maybe just having that moment of a little bit compassion for them, and giving them the space or asking them if they're doing okay or if they need anything, may help in a long way. I know that I try to help people out as much as I can. It's what I do with the podcast and all the other things that I do because I think it's important. I think for me, I have some guilt, with some of the things I did younger, and I've talked about that on my podcast, and not always being the most, compassionate person that I probably should have been. But you know what? You live with that. You can't let the past. I posted that out today also on social media. What did I say exactly? I want to pull it up here. So if you don't let the past die, then it won't let you live. And so things I did in the past, I just had to let it go, and realizing that I can't change what I did back when I was younger, but I can change what I do today. And so I work on being more compassionate. I work on being more thoughtful. I work on being a better person to my family, to my friends, to strangers. And it's really has had a positive effect on me. And I hope that some of you who maybe don't practice compassion as much as we should maybe could start. Now, you say, okay, well, Cliff, that sounds all great and good, but why did you throw up compassion and courage? Well, think about it. So to make a change in your life, or to make, to do something different that's out of your norm, it takes courage to do that. It's not easy to do. And to be courageous in making change is hard. A lot of people, talk about, oh, well, so and so's going through this, and I don't understand. I that wouldn't bother me, or I don't understand why that bothers him. We went through the same situation. And it's understanding that everybody is different, right? We're all different in this world. God made us all different. And I just feel that when somebody has the courage to change, right, they have now become a stronger person. And that change, no matter what they have going on in their life, is never easy. Change can be very hard for a lot of people. But just to have the courage to want to make that change, my hat's off to them, because it's very courageous. But also, having their family and friends, when you have that person, and they might have failed before in the past. Maybe this is the third, fourth, fifth, sixth attempt in trying to make a change. Um, you know, have compassion for them for that, because it's not easy. It's hard. When you are dealing with things, and I'm talking about mental health issues that you don't understand yourself. It'll take a couple of times to figure out, really how to make it work for you. And it is a ongoing situation, right? And I talk about that. I talked about my struggles with post-traumatic stress syndrome, with my TBI injury, with the loss of my hearing, which it when my hearing aids are, and not that they have, because the hearing doctors have done a great job. Um, but every now and then, if they, sometimes there's a software issue or something, and usually it's very minor. But one of them will blip out or something, and I have to go and stop what I'm doing, or and change the settings on it, or reboot it or something. It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, sometimes it kind of makes me sad. And really, the time that it makes me sad the most about losing my hearing is as at night, because I always sleep with my window open, because I just enjoy the sounds at night. Well, when I take my hearing aids out, I can't hear those, because I just, my hearing's not there. And I can't sleep with them. I tried to sleep with them, and it just doesn't work. It makes it kind of hard. So Matthew just posted that he's becoming more of a hermit because he can't interact with society as expected. You know what, man? I want to switch gears for a second off my hearing, and I want to say something to that. I kind of get that. I understand that. I know that when I retired out of the military, that I had become very withdrawn, and I had to force myself back into social interactions, and that was a slow process, because to me, I lost myself during that time frame. And so, my life coach, she was very good. What she told me to do is, I was going to yoga once a day, twice a week, once or twice a week. And she says, why don't you just start going on Wednesdays, which was a different crowd. And I started going on Wednesday. And she goes, then instead of just after class is over, just walking out, take a moment and visit with somebody. I'm not saying have a long conversation with them, but just have that interaction. And I started doing that again, and that really helped with that. But it's I don't know the reasons behind it. You're kind of pulling back, but hang in there. Try to make a little change in trying to get out and being more focused. One thing I used to have a lot of parties at my house, and I quit doing that. And I think maybe this year I might schedule maybe a July 4th party or something, just to kind of get my interactions back up like it used to be. But it is lonely, and I know what it's like to feel that loneliness. But what we don't want to have happen is that loneliness turn into something else. And so if you feel yourself kind of going down that road or that path, try to change something that you're comfortable with in changing. I'm no expert. I'm not a licensed clinical social worker. I'm not a psychologist. Um, but also I think, and Dave brings up a good point about, technology making, I have to put my glasses on because I can't see. Technology, we kind of miss out on that, personal interaction that we used to get, all the time. And that's a good point that, you're not in the physical presence of somebody, but you can be there for them, through social media, through, FaceTiming, texting, or however. It's just a little bit different way of communicating, but it still can make you still feel a little bit lonely. But to go back to what I was talking about, and it kind of ties into what Matthew was saying with the loneliness also too. When I started becoming a little bit more drawn was because when I was having issues with my hearing, I had a hard time in public spaces, and that's kind of tough, especially when you do public speaking events and you have a lot of people around and multiple people talking with you. Is I really struggled in keeping up with those conversations. That kind of itself made me pull back some. But after getting my hearing aids and getting them tuned in to how my hearing is, it's really made a big difference. But I do say that it does. I do kind of get a little bit depressed at night when I take him out and I no longer can hear the frogs chirping or just the wind blowing in the trees. I can't hear that anymore, even though I have my window open. And that does kind of bother me sometimes because I did, I do enjoy that, the noises of the night. But it is what it is. I'm thankful that at least I got my hearing back. With the hearing aids in, and you can't see them, right? You guys can't see them, so it's no big deal. But when you lose one of your senses, it can be tough. I know my grandfather. He had macular degeneration in his eyes, and lost his eyesight. He was like, I think he was 83 or 82, very healthy. But after he went blind and lost his eyesight, he lost his will to live. He just, and I'm thinking, well, how do you do something different that you did, your whole life? It's kind of hard. And he became very depressed over that. My older sister, she was blinded in one eye when she was younger, and so she has a cataract in her only good eye, and she's has qualms about having cataract surgery because she doesn't have a backup. So what she's doing now is learning braille and other stuff in case the unfortunate happens that she would have the cataract surgery and something would go wrong and she would lose her vision. And so she's kind of planning for that. I was reading what Matthew put on, but Matt, that's a tough place. You're gonna have to learn how to reach out. But if you're a veteran, you can always join Earnest Surveillance. You can join Veterans Trash Talk if you're not already a member of them. Just request to join, and that's always a good group of people to talk with and to deal with things. Because we're all here for each other, and that's why we do what we do, and that's why I do what I do. But to go back to what I was talking about, having the courage, to do something or try something new is hard. But it can be very, very rewarding. So go back to what I was talking about. When somebody's going through recovery, whether it's PTSD, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever, a lot of times those they have a hard time in the relapse. I know for me with PTSD and with what I dealt with, dates is hard for me. Of course, 9/11, October 3rd, where I did the boat rescue, where I rescued, 3 out of the 4 fishermen. Those dates, those are to me, that's a hard time that I have issues with, right? But there's other times where just stuff just comes up, right? And so I could be walking outside and smells are worse for me. I think for a lot of veterans who deployed, smells are probably the worst. But you just get that smell of something that brings you back, and you're back in that moment in a second. And that can kind of start you, not being in a good place. So you have to learn how to deal with that. And that's one of the things that I talk about here on the Mental Health Warriors, different tools you can have in your toolbox, right? So what can I do to, have when these little instances come up? One thing I do is I work on my cars. I find that very relaxing. I do yoga. Yoga has actually had, um, a profound effect on me, on just not so much mentally and physically, and I'm shocked by that. And I talk about that endlessly. If I was probably the most anti-yoga, making fun of those people person that you could find, and then I had to eat those words, because just to go and to learn to shut your mind off and to stretch and to make yourself a little bit better and something different that you never did before, is really amazing. I know some of my friends tease me, but then when they go and try yoga or try something different, it can have a positive effect on you. And that's one thing I talked about is, I don't believe in New Year's resolutions because you set yourself up for failure. I believe in making small little changes and turning those into big wins. And, for me, it was starting yoga, and that's really been a good, it's been had a good positive effect on me. I still work out. I'm going to get back to running here. I've been so focused on yoga, I've just kind of got back off running. But when those issues and problems step up, right? And so I'm talking about this to people who maybe have friends or family who are going through stuff that I've talked about. Learning to be a little bit more compassionate and learning to, try to understand what they're going through and understand the fact that they may not understand what they're going through. Because I know, when I was in my depths of hell, and dealing with my PTSD and staying late up at night and drinking and carrying on, that I couldn't explain to my family what I was thinking and what was going on. I didn't have the words to express it. And it wasn't until a lot later on that I was able to do that. And so, sadly, had I succeeded that day, had my brother not found me and saved my life, and if they would have went back and asked my family, did Cliff have any signs of what he was going through? A lot of them, they probably would have said no. We just didn't see anything. My brother in the documentary that Able Channel filmed said that he had saw maybe little signs, but nothing that he ever thought that that I would ever attempted on my life. But when you're going through recovery and when you're dealing with those things, it can be very hard and very tiring. And I know sometimes you just don't want to continue. You just don't want to keep pushing forward in the fight. But I'm here to tell you that you need to have the courage to go ahead and keep pushing forward and keep wanting to fight to live every single day and try to live the best life that you can live, because we only get one shot at it. And it's your life. So you can decide how you want to live it. Do you want to live it being lonely? Do you want to live it, in a self-destructive manner? Do you want to have the courage to stand up and say, I'm going to make that change today, and I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to stop going down this path, and instead of going right, because I know what right looks like, because I've gone down that path many, 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 many times before, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to try to go left. It seems a little scary. I've never been down that way before. I don't know where it leads, but I think I'm going to go left, and I'm going to try it. And you know what I bet you'll find out is, once you have the courage to do it, you're going to realize that you should have went that way a long time ago. Don't feel guilty about it, but you're going to realize that you wasted a lot of time and emotions on things that you didn't need to. And not to unvalidate them, because everybody's pain that they've gone through in their life, I feel, is always validated. Whether you think it is or not, your pain and what you've been going through is validated. And it's real for you, right? That's one thing I tell about people with PTSD is real for the person that is experiencing it. It's real for the person that's going through it. And that should never be taken lightly. Whether or not you are in the same situation with that person or similar situation, everybody deals with it a lot differently. And so it's pretty um, it's pretty hard when you start going through it. We here at Veterans Stress Talk, we got a new software, and so now before I used to watch my phone with the comments, and now they're coming up on the screen. And so Matt was putting some more comments out there about him and what he's been going through, and I appreciate you sharing, Matt, a little bit of your story and what you've been going through. Because everybody has a story, and everybody's story is important, and I feel that we shouldn't be ashamed of it. There for a long time, I was ashamed that I had gone to counseling or see a psychiatrist or, had a life coach or went to a licensed clinical social worker. And I did a podcast on that, on shame, because shame can keep you from getting help, and shame can keep you from um, making right decisions or making bad decisions. It can lead you down a path of quite ugliness of all these addictions that I was talking about before. And it's hard when you have all these different things coming in at once. And what's I find interesting to me when I've been going through my struggles, and it's been going on now for 21 years, is you know things never happen when things are good. Do you ever notice that? It always happens when things are going bad, always bad, right? The car broke down. I just made my last car payment and the car breaks down. Or, I finally paid all my bills off and I was able to have a little bit in savings and the washer breaks, or like right now, my dishwasher upstairs is making noise and I'm gonna have to tear it apart and find out what's going on with it. I think something's in the pump, but I always tear stuff apart before I go buy something new, see if I can't fix it. But it's just one of those things. And it's just like, and then, like I had a good friend of mine, her car breaks down. She gets a car fixed, then, she drives a long ways into work. And then now, that was the only mode of transportation. So then she had to go buy a new car where that, financially strapped her. And then she had this go on with her house. She had that go on with her house, and she's having all these things going on. And she's a clinical social worker. So, now she's got all this stuff going on in her life, but she still has to go to work and have the focus to help others. And it's amazing, and she's an amazing person. She's been on my show before, but we all have issues and problems, and we have to learn how to work through it. And I think that it's important, and I just think that if people felt a little bit more compassion, towards each other, and maybe a little bit more courage to stand up for what is right or what isn't, I think society in large would be a lot better for it. I think, especially within the military, within the veteran communities, um, we got way too many veterans out there that are completing suicide, and it saddens me. We really, I think, in talking about it and having safe spaces like we do with Veterans Trash Talk and here at the Mental Health Warrior and other things, are really trying to help others. But one thing I did, and it's kind of funny. I'm going to switch gears here. Oh, Matt, thank you for your service. Is on Facebook groups, right? You can, and if you have Facebook, you can join different groups. And I joined this group called what was it? The Appalachian something, right? And I grew up in the country, and they asked me. They said, "Why do you want to join this group?" Because I didn't grow up in Appalachia. But I grew up, down in Southwest Missouri, had the Boston Mountain Range down there. And to me, the stuff that they were posting just reminded me of my childhood. And I would just really enjoyed some of the posts that they would post at their gardens of, out hunting, or, of their mom and pa out on the farm or whatever. And I just liked those posts. And so I joined that group, and I really enjoy, when they post things like that, because it just gives me a moment to look back and think about, things I did as a kid and stuff like that. Because sometimes it's when your mind is taking you down a path of ugliness, sometimes it's a good just to take a break from it and go do something else. right? My life coach told me, he says, okay, so if you're sitting in a dark room, and I talked about this, and you're having bad thoughts or something's going on in your head, right? Get up and leave the room and go do something else. Go pick up a book and read like 3 pages, or go do something different. Go outside, take your shoes off and go walk barefoot on the ground. I'm a big earthing person and I believe in that. Just do something to change your thinking for that second of that moment of that time, because that could change your life immensely. If you're constantly sitting down in that room thinking about whatever you're thinking, think about this for a second. How are you going to be able to stop that if you don't remove yourself from that situation? And the easiest thing to do is just to get up and walk out and go find something else to do, whatever that is. Anything simple. One thing that I talk about is, hunt the good stuff, and that's to think about 3 positive things that happened to you that day before you go to sleep. Kind of helps reset your mind. And I do that. I think that was important. That was a master resiliency training they did in the Army. And I think a lot of people kind of laugh that off, but if you do that, it does have a good impact on you in your sleep. When you already have issues with sleep anyway, you don't want to have anything else that adds to it, right? Because sleep is very important to the body, and it's something that I've struggled with for a while. And it's just something that we all have to learn to get better at, right? Because sleep's important. And so as I wrap up here, as I move on, is think about this week and what's going on, or as you move forward, on things that you can do, little things that can make your life better. Maybe you can work on being more compassionate with social workers. Maybe it's letting that person at the grocery store go in front of you. Maybe it's listening to friends online, or maybe it's being more responsive to people who reach out to you and who want to talk to you through social media or other means. Or maybe it's calling that family member or that friend to say, hey, how you doing, or what's going on. um, but more importantly, if you're that person who's having a rough go at it, right? And we're moving into summer now, and we're still in the late spring. That's a hard time for people with a lot of change going on if you're stuck in that rut, and I understand how that is. But think about that road that you're on. Think about how many times you've gone down that path, and think about what you can do differently so you don't go back down that same path again. And just try to work on having the courage to try a different route or do something different. And it doesn't have to be something big. I talk about that a lot, is do little small things that you can give you a win for the day. And one guy was saying, I was watching motivational speakers, and he says, hey, when you first get up in the morning, make your bed. He says, that's the easiest thing you can do, and you were already successful when you completed your very first task. And it's important, right? So you get your first task done for the day, and hello, Monica, glad to see you join in. And then you're done for the day, right? And so you can already have a first win by making your bed. I told Lloyd, my little 8-year-old, that hey, make your bed when you get up in the morning. Some days he remembers it, some days he doesn't, but I really don't get onto him. But he always feels good when he's able to complete the task that I have set up for him to do. And one of the big things he likes doing, it's funny, he does his own laundry. At 8 years old, he knows on Sundays that he takes his basket of dirty clothes and he takes it into the laundry room, and he knows how to do his own laundry. And I don't have to tell him that anymore. He just does it automatically. But for him, he feels so much better that he was able to accomplish that task, right? And so that was good for him. So really look at, if you're in a bad place right now, look at something that you can do small differently. I talk about this all the time when my doctor was telling me, he says, hey, so how many drinks do you have a night? And I'm like, well, I drink 4 beers. And he, instead of telling me, hey, you need to quit drinking, he was like, hey, why don't you just drink 3 beers? And then I said, oh yeah, I can do that, no problem, And then it was, hey, why don't you just drink 2 beers, you know? And then next thing you know, you're like, well, why am I even drinking? I'm only drinking 1 beer. Why am I even drinking? And then next thing you know, you're not drinking as much. I have nothing against drinking, by the way, if it's done responsibly. But it's important, and that was just a little change that you can make that is not going to have such a huge impact. Maybe it's going out for a walk after dinner, or maybe it's during the day if you're home, or while you're at work, getting up from your cubicle. And I always laugh and say this because people who smoked always went outside and did smoke breaks. And I always said, well, I'm going to go do my smoke break. I didn't smoke, but I would go outside and walk around for 5-10 minutes a day. During that time, 10 minutes, usually I go outside and walk. 15 minutes, I take a break from my cubicle to go walk. Just to kind of change myself, to feel the sunshine on my face, and do something a little bit different. And I think that just something a little change like that can make things a little bit different. And it's pretty amazing once you start adding up those little things. Eventually, you're going to build that. So you're starting with your foundation and the little things. You're putting the studs up, and you're slowly getting the walls built, and then you work your way up, and then you have a house. But a house doesn't start from the roof down; it starts from the bottom up. And so what you need to do is work on you from the bottom, and then slowly add things as you build up. And there may be times where you didn't quite get that nail in right, and it went crooked, and you have to straighten it out, or maybe you have to pull it out and put a new one in, and that's okay. That's life, right? But you got a whole pile of nails right there. So if you mess up the first time, that's okay. Just throw out another nail, stick another one in, and hammer it in straight. And I think you'll be all right with that. And just know that sometimes with recovery, you can take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or 1 step forward and 2 steps back. That's just how it is. But it's important enough to keep and continue to do it. And I think that the more that you do it, the better you'll get at it, the better your practice will be. In yoga, they always talk about, this is your practice. This is why you're here. This is your life. And so in yoga, they say you can do as much yoga as you want, or you can just lay on your mat and take a nap. It doesn't matter. It is your space. This is why you're here. This is your universe. And so you choose how to make that better for you. And what works for everybody doesn't always work for you. And that's okay, right? Because not everything works well for everybody. Everybody's different. And so you have to find out what works best for you in your practice for your life. This has been your mental health thing with Cliff. I hope you guys have a great week. And just remember, you can catch my podcast on Reads Across America Radio at Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. Super easy to find. Just download your favorite radio app, whether it's iHeartRadio, Odyssey app, or TuneIn app. Just search Reese, and then Reese Across America Radio come up, and you just click that follow button, and it'll be awesome. But hey, before that, be sure to go out on veteranstrashtalk.com. You can get our t-shirts. I do have the new t-shirt out, the new Veteran Mental Health Warrior t-shirt. I don't know if it's on the website yet, but it should be out here in the next couple of weeks. I completely did a redesign of the t-shirt. We have a lot of great t-shirts out there. I got the Dumpster Fire t-shirt on today. But I will tell you, I've had this t-shirt for 2 years now, and it's just as comfortable, and it has worn just as well as any. So the quality of the t-shirts are hands down are great. Please go out there and visit. You can use the code CB2022 to save 10% on your whole order. But one thing I did on my t-shirt last year is I put this crisis number. And so you can text home 741-741 to speak to a crisis counselor if you're having issues or problems. Of course, now you can dial 988 and the same can happen, and you can go out there and get the help, because nobody needs to suffer alone. Nobody needs to suffer in darkness. We're all in it together. We're all going to work on having more compassion, and we're all going to have the courage now to ask for help and to move forward with our recovery. This has been your Mental Health Warrior podcast with Cliff, and you guys have a great, awesome day. Take care.